Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Now, in September 2022, I was lucky enough to board a flight to Vietnam, where I'd be jumping in swamps, climbing up hills, and taking on one of the toughest challenges with an entire group of incredible, crazy, quirky, amazing, and inspiring individuals who I'm lucky enough to call my friends, as we all went over and took part in SAS Who Dares Wins. Now, with any kind of TV production, they are always constrained to fit the absolute best bits into a short window of time. So as you won't be surprised to hear, there is so much more to these individuals than meets the eye. So on this mini series of podcasts, you get to listen in as I catch up with this incredible group of people. We discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly as it comes to SAS Who Dares Wins, our favorite instructors, our biggest challenges, and also learn a little bit more about what drives them, what inspires them, and how this journey was for them. It's been so much fun reminiscing and catching up. So if you are sitting comfortably, let's buckle up for safety and get in there with today's episode. I'll see you on the other side. There he is. How you doing, brother?
I'm very good. How are you doing? How's the knee coming along?
Oh, man, I'm all the better for hearing your dorsal tones. No, I'm good,
I'm
my
very
friend.
excited to see you.
Feeling good. I'm feeling mobile significantly sooner than I should have been, but I'm trying to balance that kind of self-discipline of because I've been terrible at it in the past. It's one of those things like, and I imagine you may have had the similar in the past, it's like most people have to be disciplined to start something, but then when you get to a certain point, you have to be disciplined not to do too much. Do you know what I mean? I think for some people, it's hard to like find the discipline to even do things, but then it's trying to have that self-awareness, because I've done so much of overtraining and over-egging it in the past. So I'm trying to keep that kind of self-awareness really close with this knee. But it's feeling good. Go back to the hospital in about a week and see how it goes. How's your body covering up?
Pretty good. Although I'm also quite self-aware that I think everyone will be rushing back to training way too quickly.
Yeah.
And not recovering.
And even if you think your body's ready, it's probably not. It's kind of have that long mindset, isn't it?
Yeah. The fact that my body wanted so much sleep at the end, it was telling me that it wasn't ready to be working again. Although your mind obviously wants to continue, you want to keep going. You've got that motivation, haven't you, to keep pushing on.
Well, the mind is very fickle, isn't it? It's very short-term orientated in a lot of things. Hence why we struggle so much these days with things like social media and instant gratification, because the mind, when allowed to retract itself to its primitive form, can be very like, I want this now. Whereas I suppose for you, in the world that you operate in, and pretty much, to be fair, performing for the best of interpretations as a high level athlete, imagine your sort of self-awareness with your body and your own physical intuition has probably had to have been honed. Have you ever had to learn any lessons with it? Because I imagine there's a lot of drop-off in your world of injuries and just being able to do it for as long as you have been able to do it, really.
Yeah, we definitely have situations where one injury will take you out. If one injury can end your career very quickly. So you kind of obviously, you've always got luck on your side. But the main thing is about keeping your body. This is why flexibility is so important to dancers. Flexibility is probably the main thing that stops us getting injured, because your muscles can react and bounce back. Like when we're on the course, actually, the SAS course, you saw people were seizing up after a couple of days. And it's because their muscles are used to go in the gym. They're used to train in one specific way. They've not got that flexibility of the muscles that are able to retract and react when you're changing, doing different things. But I mean, my worst injury came years ago. I compressed part of my spine, and that was about a good 4 or 6 month recovery.
Really?
And it just shows that in dance world, that can knock you out full time, because we say if you're off for 4 months, it's going to take you 8 months to get back to where you were. It's always double.
Is that even just from a physicality perspective, or also because, I mean, like it's a very competitive environment, because you're kind of, well, not you necessarily, because you work with a company at the moment, don't you? But so I imagine there's a big aspect of your world or sector that's kind of self-employed.
Oh yeah, massive. I think if you're freelance, like many dancers are, you obviously, if you're not dancing, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
You're not doing the work. It's as simple as that. But even in a company, if you're injured for a long period of time, you're going to start losing roles because the company needs to move on. You're kind of expendable in that sense.
You're an asset. You're like a football player in that respect. You're not a great investment. And I imagine there's probably a very easy not easy, but I'm sure there's recognized calculations where they base on, what this person is worth, their age, their longevity, how much more are we going to invest in this person or give them time to recover. So with having that sort of, any injury could be a career-ending one. How do you do such a precise and what, from the audience's perspective, probably seems very effortless, but it must be petrifying when your body is part of your tool set. As much as I suppose, a builder, his body's part of his tool set, but they've not got to perform in the same way, with the greatest of respect. Like, even for myself, as a firefighter, my body is, if I lose now, I'm out of work and I've had to have those conversations and all that sort of stuff. But there's a bigger variety of skill sets I can offer. I'm an instructor. I can do all of this other stuff. Whereas for you guys, you could teach, but you're still very young. So you want to keep that where you are, really.
Yeah, I think that's where cross-training becomes increasingly important. Your body has to be versatile. Because as you say, we get injured, we're out of work. That's it. There's very other little things we can do in a company. You can teach. Not many people want to do that. You've got to have the right mindset for that.
And there's usually somebody already doing it. So
there is always, yeah.
We don't need another teacher.
Very little jobs.
Yeah.
Even for new dancers coming in, you've got dancers graduating from schools all over the world. But most national companies are maybe offering 2 positions a year, if you're lucky.
Wow.
So the majority of dancers who are graduating from these schools aren't getting jobs, and they'll end up, going on to retrain to do something else. So first of all, you're lucky to even get into a company. And then once you're in, you've got to perform to a certain level. Otherwise, they'll kick you out, because for them, you've got to be performing at your level. You've got to be able to keep up with the training. If you're getting lots of injured, you kind of become useless, and you're also kind of letting the rest of the team down.
Yeah.
We do have people who, are instinctively not right to be there because they're coming in and moaning about a certain injury. That'll heal. Then something else will pop up. And you've got to question, is it their mindset or is it the way they're training? There'll be something. It could be one or the other. Some people use injuries as an easy way out.
Well, I imagine the lifestyle isn't easy as well. I used to coach a couple of high-level equestrians, and people might look at them and think, wow, really beautiful, with the horses are so well looked after, the people seem so... But to be honest, it's maybe a very small sample, but the lifestyle was terrible for them. Like, their nutrition and their diet and their travel and their fucking sleep was damn near non-existent. What does... In fact, first take me back to the back injury, because you said there about mindset. So how did you not become one of those people where it was like, oh, Dan's done his back, fucking hell, he's back for a little bit, and now he says he's got an issue with his hamstring, it's kind of related, now he's got an issue with his neck, he can't fucking jump as high, he's losing there. How did you not become one of those? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents, and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
I think I've always been quite well respected for my work ethic among fitters, and that's done me massively. If I go out for an injury, it's an extremely rare occasion. If I get sick, it's an extremely rare. And companies will take note of that. If you have worked your backside off for 6 years and then you get an injury, they'll give you a massive amount of support to get you back on. It's when it becomes repetitive, it's when they know it's a bit of a warning sign, a bit of a red flag. With my injury, I was probably, I would say 4 months it took me to recover. But during that time, you're focusing on trying to bring yourself back. You can work on other parts of your body.
So what did that look like? What did active recovery?
So for me on the back, obviously I was avoiding the spine, but I could still work my legs. I could still work my upper body. I was still keeping the strength up. And obviously we were quite lucky in dance where we are very well supported by physiotherapists. Most of the companies I work in have doctors on hand. They've got a therapist look after you. You get massage people to come and look after your body. So we're really well treated, basically like athletes in most jobs.
Well, you are
because our
actually,
body,
yeah.
as you say, is our only asset. So I think it's all about, you've just got to be respected for how you work. If you're respected for how you work, you'll get the support.
There's a lot to be said for that. And like you said, I don't think it's just when you're on the step. And obviously, I don't know anything about your sector, but for me, it's not just when you're doing the thing. It's all the other things people are watching when it's like, all right, guys, great stuff today. See you all on Monday. How many people are just going and ripping the fucking weekend up? Do you know what I mean? Getting involved in environments and circumstances and substances. And they can still say, oh, yeah, but I show up on Monday and do the thing. And you're like, yeah, but from not long enough in life in general, let alone in the sector, you're like, that's not sustainable. That's either going to blow up in your face, it's going to blow up in my face. That kind of work ethic or poor work ethic from that individual's kind of starts bleeding into everything else. My old man always used to tell me, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're sloppy in your personal life, it's not going to be too long until that bleeds over into everything else.
Yeah, I think that's why discipline is so important in dance. And as you say, that moves into your life. I enjoy living a disciplined life. That's just the way we were trained. That's kind of a safety zone for me to be in this disciplined environment. And that is the exactly same as what I'm like outside of work. People struggle with that, even dancers. This is why I think drugs become so, such an issue in the dance world, especially now, because of the high pressure and people are looking way to cope with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you've got to love what you're doing. I enjoy what I'm doing. So for me, all the hard work is great.
How do you balance being self-disciplined with the people that perhaps aren't then? Because I imagine you're not the sort of person that's a dick, but you're probably like I've always kind of struggled with it in maintaining relationships with people who perhaps don't have similar values. It can make you seem a little bit. I've had words like cold, or I've had words like robotic, or a bit clinical, or I've had things like that tossed in my direction at times before. Have you ever had it difficult, sort of found it difficult to maintain relationships with people that perhaps, especially if they don't work in your sector?
I struggle to surround myself with people that aren't as motivated in life. Maybe not just in dance, but in anything, their speciality.
Yeah.
That they don't have that mindset that I have. I'm the same. I've been called cold, intimidating, a bit, maybe an arrogant, a bit of a machine. And I think this is why I was very quick and very lucky that I stepped up out. So we have different ranks in ballet, obviously. You start off an apprentice, quarter ballet, and you've got to work in a big group of people. I'm quite lucky. I'm quite above that. So
Slow down and just break that back for me, because I know to you that's common sense, but to the rest of us, and certainly to me, how does the whole ranking system work and all that sort of stuff?
So you join a company if you graduate from a good school, whatever, you got into a company, you're one of the lucky 2 people to get in. You normally join at like an apprentice level, which is the lowest rank. Then you move on to what we call the corps de ballet, which is probably where most people in the ballet world sit. That's when you go performance, you got 40, 60 dancers on stage. They're all doing the exact same thing in the exact same moment. You're a team.
Okay.
Then you move on to more stuff, what my world is like. You move on to soloist, first soloist, and principals. And basically all these ranks are you're on your own or you're with one other person. So because I'm in that sector, I'm working on my own or with one other individual. And normally soloists are extremely motivated because they had to be to get to where they are.
And
so I'm quite lucky.
At what point do you get assessed for that? Is it something you have to aspire to and apply for, or do you just get recognized or chosen, or?
You get recognized. That is the only way you'll do it. You have to put in the effort when you're an apprentice or when you're a core. First of all, you're
standing out in 40 people all being asked to do the same thing. How do you stand out when you're being asked to be the same?
Yeah, well, that's what's surprising, isn't it? You'd think if you're doing the exact same thing, but most people struggle to do the exact same thing.
Okay.
If it means you've got to be on point. It can be something even as simple as where your eyes are looking at one moment. If you're putting in the effort and you're showing that you can do the simple things right, then they'll slowly give you an opportunity of a soloist role or something to see if you can prove yourself at the next level. So you've got to put the effort in. But you wouldn't believe the amount of people, which surprises me because it's not my mindset, who are happy to spend their whole life dancing in the corps de ballet. That's a safe zone. They like being among the group. They like, I suppose, the stability. They don't want the extra pressure of dancing on their own or being a soloist. But for people like you and me, that's the challenge because we want to kind of excel and try and push ourselves, and we're probably both motivated by a certain level of success.
I've got it tattooed on my arm, and I always say I'm no better or worse than anybody else, but I am very, 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 very relentlessly curious about continuing to peel back the layers and then get the fucking jackhammer out or pull the rusty spoon out and get to that next level of whatever I think I might be. And the beauty of that is that in itself is constantly evolving. And I've had that through layers of different professional sports, and then going into strongman, and then going into, firefighting and athletics, and all of those things. There's a great book called The Second Mountain. Have you ever read it?
No, I haven't.
I don't know if we spoke about it when we were away at all. The Second Mountain is, I forget the author's name, but I'll ping it to you afterwards. And it's got an audiobook. It's pretty cool. And it talks about the illusion of reaching the precipice, or reaching, the first mountain, which you thought was the thing you wanted. Like for somebody, it might be join a professional company. So join the professional company is their mountain, and they think as a child that's what they want to do. But when they get there, they almost, as they've evolved on the journey, and they've also are then at a different elevation, so they therefore have a different perception of life and potential around them. They sometimes have an evolution of aspiration as well, and realize that that is just the first of many things. Now, some people just get to that thing and kind of stay there forever. It's a bit like they're on a highway and they've just kind of pulled over, they stick the hazards on, and they're just enjoying the view. Whereas individuals such as yourself you have the humility not only to say, actually, now I want something a little bit more, a little bit different, but in doing so, you often have to go through that valley of humility. Then you have to descend from the original peak and learn a little bit more of something else. Because I imagine, as you were sort of saying there, the mindset and the expectation of a soloist is probably a very different beast to that individual that stands in a line of 40 individuals. Without
a doubt. I think you have to remove yourself from being quite, I suppose it's like being the big fish in a small pond when you're in the core. You've got
That's the sacrifice.
Show your weakness, find your vulnerability, and be like, okay, I'm going to step to the next level. I'm back at the bottom of the pecking order again, and you've got to work your way up again.
That's going through that valley. You have to become learning to be shit again. Or you're not shit, but you're like, okay, I'm the beginner again. And so people get so used to
the new rookie.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think it's quite interesting because I remember when I was younger in training, I was very clearly told by one of the teachers, you're never going to make it as a dancer, and you're never going to be a classical dancer. And for some people, that can shoot you down straight away. And it's like, okay, someone's told me that. Yeah. But then I just created these small goals. I was like, I got the opportunity to go to Moscow and train. I was like, well, I'm definitely taking that. I want to get in a company. I managed to get into a company. That was my next small goal. Okay, I want to excel in the core.
These weren't small goals, dude. Rewind us back, because I don't want
sitting
to
like a child and thinking,
I don't want to belittle the journey you've been on, because this is the rarest of the rare. This is a very small, finite number of people, and drop-off points and near misses, and just you had to have so much serendipity and effort and discipline to get to where you were, because you were having, when I was speaking to you when we first got there, you were having these thoughts when you were in your very early teens, if not earlier. And how do you get that kind of, not audacity, but like that ambition that actually stays? Because, I wanted to be a firefighter when I was 9, but then I forgot about it until I was like 18. So what was it that kept you going when you were that age? Take us into how you actually found yourself in this company.
Well, it's interesting. So obviously I started dancing when I was 4 years old, and that was just by luck. My sister wanted to go take dance classes. I got dragged along because my mum had to drive my sister in, so I had to sit and watch. And literally one day the teacher got me up and was like, come join in. You're a 4-year-old kid. You don't dance. You just kind of run around the room in a football kit.
That's what I did, yeah. Because my sister did dancing as well.
And that was basically it. But as with many sports, or any like big professional sports, by the age of 10, you have to kind of know you want to do it. Because, you can't come into ballet at 16 or 18 and make it professionally. It's already too late. That's it.
Really?
Your chance is gone. Yeah, you've got no chance. Wow. If you're not starting some level of professional training, an intense level of professional training from when you're 9, 10, you'll never make it.
9. So is that just a physicality thing, or is it just to learn the disciplines? It takes that long, or?
Yeah, it literally takes that long to learn. It's like rebuilding a human. I like to think of it, because you've got to teach them. Not obviously, it's not just technical stuff like the steps. You've got to teach them musicality. You've got to teach them artistry. It's like it's like you're sculpting a person in real life, and that takes years. It's not something. It's not like you can go to the gym and lift a dumbbell, and then the next day you're going to lift more heavy dumbbell, and so on and so forth. It's these very, very small levels of progress which take years to hone. And then it's only when dancers reach, even if they've joined a company at 18, they still won't be great until they're like 20, 25, 26, when they've got this level of confidence and self-trust in their body and they finally hone their art. And that's when dancers start to peak.
Really?
So it's such a long journey. But yeah, if you started at 17, 18, there's just no way you could learn in time to join a company, because a company is not going to take you when you're 30, 40. They want you when you're straight out of school at 19, 20. So there's just no way in that small period of time you'd be able to learn.
So looking at the way that we learn and kind of, well, we alluded to it earlier about this kind of instant gratification society now, that what you're describing there to me sounds like quite a long effort reward spectrum versus, like you say, like something simplistic like what I was involved in, like powerlifting, or there's a very short effort return. I mean, it's not super short, but you know, like you say, in a couple of weeks you can start to see that you're making quite tangible metric progress in a certain direction, and that ideally gives you that shot of dopamine, and you continue on and round you go in that sort of reciprocal self-perpetuating cycle. But for guys and girls in your sector, that sounds like it's a much longer process, and I wonder if you feel like it's going to continue to be, I think it would continue to be as popular, but will the grassroots level continue to be as invested in and or participated in by communities? And like my daughter, because again, my daughter danced for not very long, to be brutally honest with you. She started doing cross country then, and I'm quite probably selfish parent as well, because I'm so involved in my own shit. But anyway, that's another conversation. But like, but that's a statement as well. I mean, let's throw that into the mix. Parents that aren't necessarily willing to drive up and down the country, or who aren't sitting there at the weekends. What do you think it's like at grassroots level now? Do you think people are going to have that diligent persistence that you've had, and many like you as well?
I think I was in quite a lucky position. So I had two parents that had zero interest in dance, zero interest in ballet. So it was down to my own self motivation, just because I was loving what I was doing.
Yeah.
So that gave me the motivation. But I think the sad thing with dance is, let's take UK, for example. There's probably 2 schools in the whole of UK that will regularly feed international companies. So
the whole of the
you're
UK?
Already limiting in, wow. Because these little dance schools, some of them are amazing. But to get to the next level, or if you want to be a soloist or principal in a company, you've got to kind of step up the training. So in the UK, you've got to make the trip down to London and join the Royal Ballet School or something if you're going to train in the UK. And that's not easy for everyone. One, it can be extremely expensive. I was always lucky. I managed to get scholarships because my family weren't well off, so we never paid.
What was your path then? Sorry, because you started going quite young, didn't you? To move away from your family that young as well. Just run us through that, please.
So when I was 10, I moved there's a vocational dance school in Chester called the Hammond. It's probably one of the top 3 schools in the UK at the minute. And luckily, I got a scholarship to go there. As I say, my family couldn't afford it.
How much was it?
It was a boarding school.
Don't mind me asking.
I dread to think they're probably quite 14 grand a year or something. They're quite bloody expensive.
Which back then is a fucking lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money now, really. Yeah, if you have to have £1,500 a month.
Yeah, if you're paying that every year, and if you've got 2 children that you're trying to look after, you've got to make a choice, and it can be impossible. And luckily, we live 30 minutes away from that place.
Oh, no.
If not, you'd have to board, so you're sending the kids off for boarding. That's more expense on top. But my mum sacrificed everything to drive me there every day. She had to drive there, drive back for work, come pick me up at the end of the day. I remember I went to Royal Ballet School to look around, and I just said, "No, it's not for me."
Why?
I wasn't ready at that age, I think, to move away.
Okay.
Which was weird, because then when I was 15, I was very eager and quick to make the decision to move off to Moscow.
Yeah, I remember when you said that to me. Then I was like,
so it's quite
15 to just go. You didn't even speak the language. You didn't. So you did 5 years studying at this private in Chesterfield.
Yeah. No, I did 5 years, and then literally.
What does that look like then? Sorry, do they still do the general education around the dancing, or I imagine the dancing's more the priority? Is it like 80-20 dancing, or is it like?
I would say so. You would have done your normal schoolwork up until about 3 o'clock, and then from 3 till about 6 or 3 till 7, then you'd have dancing on top.
Okay.
So obviously you do all your usual. You're working towards your GCSEs, all the usual stuff that everyone else is doing.
Mm.
But dancing does take priority. You're going there because you want to become a dancer. You're not going there because you want to be an academic.
Yeah.
But that said, my academics and your academics will improve because my whole year group was probably around 24 people. Now,
Really?
compare that to a normal public high school, where you might have
Hundreds.
hundreds of people in your
Yeah.
year. Your education also goes up because you're basically getting a private education alongside that.
I think about that in general with a lot of private schools because they have, smaller classes. I think most private schools. I was with one of my girlfriends very early on. She was at a private school. I used to go and visit her, and they'd have group sport every day, and then every Saturday they'd almost like have a sports day every Saturday, where all of the school teams would all play, and then they'd almost have like a mini I don't know, like not festival, but like a mini. Everyone gets together and celebrates all the athletes, and it was encouraged and cool to be, part of a sporting club. Whereas I don't think, or I know that not to be the case in so many public schools. And then it's not really doesn't take too much to imagine the fact that if you compound that over 5 or 6 years, the collective focus that gives a child, and just like the kind of habits they develop from wanting to be part of something and knowing that winning matters and all that sort of stuff, you end up with a totally different human being.
Yes. And I think I was very lucky because dance kind of opened that door for me. Because, as I said, I wouldn't have gone there. I would have gone to my local high school like my sister did. Dance opened that door for me to have supposedly a better education. And maybe it's not even a better education. It's just when you're in the smaller groups, you can get more attention. You can be more focused on. You get more opportunities to go and do the sports. Sports was a massive part of the school. We went back in on Saturday and we did sport and we did dance all day.
Okay.
We were doing already 6 days a week, and that was the same in Moscow. We did 6 days a week. You went to school 6 days a week and you got one day off. That was it. That was just life. And once that's instilled in you, you kind of miss it. I find 2 week weekend days a bit much sometimes. I enjoy every now and then, but I still work now 6 days a week just because that's kind of what I've grown up with, and that's kind of
again,
my
as
comfort
much
zone.
as it's an overused statement, when you develop that sort of pathway in your mind of, you enjoy making progress in things, and even if that progress is like, I want us to get on to talking about the mountaineering stuff and stuff that you do like that, you start to find things where you can see tangible progress because you are that sort of, not like you're better than anybody else, but you become like a success machine because you're like, see the steps, do the thing, get the reward. Okay, let's go again. And that's not a, or what if you're not happy, if you're not achieving? Well, you know what? We're all little dopamine machines. We like to feel like we're progressing and stuff. I think that's one of the biggest effects on people that lose purpose in life and struggle with their mental health is because they don't feel like they're making any progress in anything, whether it's dance, painting, music, fucking anything.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm a big believer of the more time you put in, the more you get out. But you've got to be wise with how you use that time. I think that's the key. You've got to be wise with how you use it.
We all know that person that's worked hard all their life and never worked smart. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I've one of the members of my family, one of my uncles, worked hard all his life and never seemed to make any progress. And I imagine that must just be perpetually frustrating when you get told that hard work pays off. Well, it does, but you've got to start working smart at a certain point as well. And again, that kind of alludes back to when we were talking about training. You can't just, if a 10 push-ups is great, then 1,000 must be fucking brilliant. Well, no, because you'll probably break the muscle down. You do that every day. You're just going to thrash your shoulder out. So take me to when you moved out to Moscow.
So Moscow came around. It was quite unexpected for me, obviously. I was doing lucky enough to go again on scholarship to a course in New York. I was doing a Juilliard school, just doing some dance out there. Obviously, I was loving my time, and basically, just one day, one of the teachers turned around and said, This is a big thing in the Bollywood. It's about who you know, also."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, I know someone in Moscow. We think you'd be great over there. Send over this video, do this, this, and this, and this." And I thought, you know what? She's telling me to apply. Why not? I thought I have zero chance. I was thinking back to the day when my teacher's like, "You're never going to be a ballet dancer." I was like, me, the guy from Widnes going off to Moscow is just, unbelievable. So when they actually emailed me back and were like, "Yeah, we want you to come. First of all, you go out on like a probation period." I was like, I am taking this chance no matter what.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I'm
How much
glad
of
I
this
did
you
because it
consult with your
changed my
parents
life.
with on stuff like that then?
Well, I think, as I say, they've never pressured me, but they've always supported me. I know a lot of people in the dance world have really pushy parents,
Yeah, I'll bet.
and I would have probably maybe I probably would have revolted against that. So for me, it was kind of perfect. And again, financially, we always just had to find another way. And I was always aware of that. If we couldn't afford it, I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
So I either had to get a scholarship, find some sort of sponsorship. Like for Moscow, I had to find sponsorship because they didn't offer scholarships.
Wow.
Luckily, that came around reasonably quickly. I think the attraction for sponsoring someone going to Moscow was I was the only third Brit ever to go and graduate.
Jeez.
So it was quite a small group of people. So
Who
it was quite
sponsors that sort of
a big
stuff
moment. So obviously there's big companies that want to put your name on it. I mean, British Airways sponsored all my flights out there. They looked after me.
Was that just you just started emailing them and asking then, or
yeah?
How do you develop a list of promotive sponsors who you might even think about approaching?
Literally for the first 2 weeks sent letters out, printed out a load of letters, tried to personalize them for each company.
Yeah.
I knew this was a chance of a lifetime. I wanted to do everything I could to make it happen, and I just sent it out to thousands of companies. I was emailing, I was calling, sending out letters, and this was new for me. I'd never done anything like this because one, I kind of hate charity. I hate asking for things. I've never been someone to ask. I've always been like, work to get what you want instead of asking. Yeah. But when you're in that situation, that's all you can do. Luckily, I remember my main sponsor, who's an anonymous guy, but he just turned around and was like, okay, I'll pay for all your fees while you're out there as well.
Yeah, fuck.
Which was incredible. And if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have gone. And that I was probably the first dancer he ever went and sponsored. And now he basically does that full time. He sponsors loads of dancers coming to the UK.
And obviously this person is anonymous, but do you think, and we're not going to try and give away anything at all that might disrupt that, but do you think it's just a passion for the sector, or did this person do it themselves once, or
I think
navigate your way around that without giving anything away?
He's never been part of the ballet world. He's always been, I think he's a very lucky individual where he is in life. So he likes to give back as much as he can. But as I say, since he started sponsoring me, he's took a massive chunk of the ballet world. He loves it now. He's been going to ballets, he's been doing all this. Now he's been sponsoring loads of dancers that have been coming into the UK, especially into schools like Royal Ballet School and Covent Garden.
That's amazing.
It's great if you're in that position in life and you can give back.
Well, I imagine
that sort of person that enjoys
I always
that,
think the arts are one of those things that you don't appreciate it until it's gone. Do you know what I mean? We take for granted, and I'm not comparing you to a busker, but like we take for granted when you walk around Covent Garden and stuff like that, you see the incredibly talented people who just appear to be performing for almost nothing. And, I always love going down. Me and my wife and my daughter go down and see shows probably a couple of times a year every time in London. And you take for granted how much probably goes into that. And I'm paying whatever, 70, 80 quid for a ticket. And it's a fucking bargain in condition to the fact that there's probably 100 people who have all done 15 years worth of study and development to be able to put together something that I get to pay 80 quid to go and see. And then you forget that somebody's got to be able to support that pipeline. And if we didn't have arts, as much as we perhaps can't attach it to a societal metric, I think society would be a very different place if we didn't have the arts, which is kind of something I wanted to ask you about COVID, but I want to finish where we are in Moscow first.
Yeah, well, I think the arts gives people kind of a way to express themselves, and I think if that's lost, kind of what is society all about? Culture is massive to society. It's essential to who we are as a person, who we are as a nation, and I think that's very unique. So Moscow-wise, as soon as they told me, I managed to find a funding, I went straight. I said to my parents, I'm going to do this. Obviously, my parents are a bit like, oh, great, okay. My mum was nervous, I'm going off. Yeah. I remember I arrived in Moscow and my mum came out with me on the first day. It was the greyest, most dreary, rainy day in Moscow, and it looked horrendous. Even I was questioning, like, where the hell am I? What am I doing here? You arrive at the academy, they put me up in like a dorm. No one speaks any English. It all feels like they're shouting because you don't understand the language. And if you don't understand Russian, it just sounds like they're shouting at you 24/7.
Okay.
It was all quite Soviet, you're in the first day of September, you have to be nice suited and booted for like your briefing for the course. There was only maybe 6 or 7 guys in my whole year.
Wow.
So again, you're on this individual small tension and you're always being watched, especially at the beginning. It's like a probation period to see if you can hack it, because they do invite every now and then. Some internationals come, but a lot of them go home within the first 2 weeks because it's just not for them.
Wow.
You've got to be able to adapt. Physically, you're working 6 days a week. Mentally, they're kind of trying to break you for the first few weeks to see if they want to break you and kind of remold you. So psychologically, it's quite a challenge. You've got to be able to, not dissimilar from kind of the SAS selection. They're trying to push you to see how far you can be pushed, to see what your limitations are. And you kind of figure out that you can work a lot harder than what you've been working previously before you came to a school like Moscow.
Okay.
You've got to adapt to the culture, massive culture shock. The food,
what was
totally
different about the culture?
I just think they're a lot more blunt than we are.
Okay.
And to the point, I think that's, which I now like. They're very open with their criticism, which in my profession is great. But if you took many kids from the school in the UK and brought them, they would hate that level of criticism. But I think the greatest thing that I really enjoyed is you had to earn criticism. Okay. So if you came into a class and you were not working 100%, the teacher would just ignore you. They wouldn't even look at you. And it's only when they were seeing that you were doing in your 100%, you're putting in the effort, or they'd give you a little criticism. So, in the UK, you might think, the teacher might say, good work. And you'd be like, oh, thanks. Yeah, I've done something good. The teacher would say, oh, you need to do this better in Moscow. And you'd be like, oh, great. I've worked hard enough that he's critiquing my work.
Yeah,
that was
because we give so much effort and attention to people that don't give a fuck anyway, for half the time, and that adversely affects those individuals who do want those 1 or 2 tweaks that could take them from good to great, rather than taking something from shit to still a bit shit.
Yeah, it's a total switch of the brain. But once it's switched, I'm like, why do we not use this the world over? It's such a great system. You put in and you get something out of it. And you're not getting out of it positive, reaffirmation. They're going to negatively tell you what you need to do to improve. But then you think, well, why am I here? I'm here to improve.
That's what you need.
So that's precisely what you want. You don't need people saying, oh, you're doing a great job. You need someone saying, okay, you need to do this to improve.
Well, most high-level performers are hungry for those marginal gains. So they should be, and most are, the most receptive of feedback, because they're often giving it to their partners and their teammates as well, which can often come off badly because, like you say, some people don't necessarily have that same level of aspiration as that individual, but they'll be looking at it like, look, you want to get better, surely, because I want to get better as well. So here's the feedback for you, because here's what I've benefited from in the past. But most people really, really struggle with that, and I think we're in an age of tremendous mental fragility, really, and I worry about our ability to take feedback and collectively develop.
Yeah, I think it's also a fear of mine, especially nowadays. You see these news stories of parents going to complain about teachers who are criticizing their kids or something. I mean, it's the wrong way to go.
Fucking hell,
definitely. Yeah. It's not good for society. So there's got to be a balance. That's the whole thing in life. Some children may respond differently to criticism, and some people might need a bit of positive affirmation. I mean, a negative point about being over criticized is you do become overly self-critical, which you can obviously spiral down a bit. You've got to learn to control that. You've got to learn to take criticism not personally. I think that's the main thing. It's not personal when someone's criticizing you, especially in Moscow. They were criticizing you because they wanted to help you. They wanted to improve you. And if you take that as that's a positive thing to receive criticism, that's massive. But we need to teach children at a young age that criticism can be positive. It's not a negative thing.
It's an opportunity to learn, like you say. It's an opportunity to get better. It's also, like you say, a way of caring, because that individual wants you to be around. I want you to be part of this, and in order for you to be part of this, you need to do this. Otherwise, like you say, the alternative is do whatever the fuck you want, because I don't really care, because I don't really want you here anyway. You're clearly not up to the standard. And that, I'd feel, you also do see that a little bit with children that have a real yearning for any form of affection, because they've just been emotionally and physically just ignored and neglected all of their life, and they can often end up being some of the better performers, because when you start giving them criticism, at least you're giving them some fucking attention.
Yeah, I think we all crave attention. We're all human to some level, aren't we?
It's survival. We need it for survival because we need to be part of a group. We haven't got big
Mhm.
long fangs and sharp fingernails, and we've got soft pushy skin. So we need to be part of the group. So we want to get that connection. We want to help each other. We want to be acknowledged by each other. So that is a massive aspect, and that's why we wonder why we keep getting drawn back into it, because we need to be part of groups. It's part of our makeup.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it gives you a level of confidence. I
Mm.
think confidence is essential. It's especially essential in something like I do, because when you've got your 2 hour or 3 hour performance when you need to perform, you need to be confident in yourself and your ability. Because if you're not confident when you go on that stage, you will mess up, you will get injured, and you'll remove it. You said it exactly. We have to go on stage and make it look effortless.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is you sweating in the training that much that when you go on stage, you are confident no matter what, you're going to be able to do it. Because the minute you have any self-doubt, you're going to do something wrong. And you might think, oh, the audience don't see it, but they do see it. They see every mistake, even if they don't consciously notice it.
Yeah.
People can feel when something's not right or not at the good level. And if you're going to a big national theatre, you're expecting a performance of a certain standard.
Yeah.
You're expecting to be wowed. And you've got to make sure as a performer, you're going on, you have the confidence that you can wow and you can perform at that standard. Otherwise, you're in the wrong place, basically.
So just talk to me about the physicality of training that you go through. Obviously, with the exception of the technical disciplines that you have to onboard, what does physical conditioning look like for you? And then sort of moving into the course itself, was there anything you had to change, and then kind of what made you want to go for this SAS thing at all, really?
I think so. Your training in a company is very similar from your training in a school like Moscow. So you're every morning you're doing an hour to an hour and a half of what we call class. Now
Okay.
that is just your simple basic warming up your body, going through all the traditional moves of ballet, um, and that's probably your foundation for the day. After that, I'll go on and normally do about 5 to 6 hours of rehearsals. So you're doing cardio for that whole day, and I'll do that 6 days a week. I normally split it now, so I'll do class in the morning for an hour, then I'll do probably 2 or 3 hours in the morning, and then 2 or 3 hours in the evening. You give yourself a bit of time in the day to recover. I mean, we don't work normal hours like most people because obviously we may be performing in the evening, 7:30. You
Hmm.
get home at what, 10, 11 o'clock. You've got to wait a couple of hours for the adrenaline to die down before you can get a good night's sleep, and you're back at it in the morning. So physically, that is what we're doing every day. But that is mainly cardio. On top of that, you need to do some sort of strength training.
Hmm.
Because if you're going to be lifting the girls, you need to be able to do it consistently, safely.
What guidance is around
Yours,
that? Because I imagine they don't just say do strength training. You have to kind of self-deploy and work it out yourself. Or what structure is provided within that, or what are you encouraged to do, or what do you do?
for me, a lot of it was taught to me in Moscow. So we had what was called gymnastics class, although it wasn't a gymnastics class. It was about how we should be cross training to prepare our body for what we're doing. So on that was given certain exercises that we do quite consistently, all things that will benefit our dance. And I think more nowadays, as we're kind of evolving in the world of dance, things like Pilates, yoga, all these sort of other trainings are coming in. And it's not to benefit our dance, it's trying to prevent injury alongside our dance.
Okay.
Because we are turned out constantly.
Mm.
Our muscles are constantly turned out. So we can get easily injured running down the street because you're parallel and your muscles are not used to being parallel. Your muscles are used to being turned out. This
Yeah.
is why cross training becomes so important because your body has to have a certain level of adaptability. So you're not getting injured the minute you do anything that isn't dance. And I think for me, I was quite lucky early on. I think this benefited me massively when I went off to do the SAS course was I was already cross training from quite a young age. I've always loved running.
Okay.
I've been doing running for as long as I can remember. I think that's massive because a lot of dancers don't run.
No.
I think that's when they do finally run, they get knee injuries or they get hip problems because
Because they're
their
not used to being
muscles
in
are
that
not used
alignment.
to being
Yeah.
parallel.
Yeah.
So that's a big one for me. I enjoy my climbing, I enjoy rock climbing, I enjoy mountaineering, and all of these are parallel sports. And I've got to be careful because, I can't do too much. Like, I don't cycle. The reason I don't cycle is I can't get bulky thighs. You see bulky thighs in tights on stage, they do not look good. So you always have to be consistently aware about the aesthetic And also, if you overtrain in a different sport, it's going to have a negative effect on your dance. So it's always about a balance. But I've consistently believed in cross training to prevent injury. And I think that massively benefited me for when I went on a thing like the SAS course, because my body, unlike most dancers, was already slightly prepared.
Yeah, I think we saw that with some of the fighters as well that were on the course, where certain types, certain modalities, certain ranges of movement or things were just, they were very, very fit individuals, but it was just so outside of their normal realm of what they considered fitness. You know, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm pretty fit," yeah, what's your metric? I'm not saying you're not fit, but like, again, somebody might go, "Well, I can actually run 2 marathons in a day, Pete." Ooh, okay, wicked. So that's one. So that's, we're talking endurance. You know, we're talking cardiovascular endurance there, not necessarily muscular endurance. So you couldn't whatever do 100 pull-ups. Neither could I. But you know, it's understanding how you think you're fit, because like wrestling is tremendous fitness. If you can wrestle consistently even for 5 minutes on a mat, you're a very fit person. But that probably means you couldn't climb like you could. You know, there's so many metrics when it comes to the spectrum of fitness. So you've always kind of balance that well enough as to avoid injuries when trying to participate in things in day-to-day life.
Yeah, I think I've always looked for different sports as kind of escape, because I enjoy my dancing so much. But I believe that if you let something be too much of your life, you'll lose that love of it. So I was always, that's why I enjoyed mountain climbing so much. It was such an escape. It was so different, a different world. You know, I'm outside, not in the theater. I'm in the mountains, in the rain, in the snow, whatever the weather is. And it's a totally different life. So yeah, I get the benefits of the cross training, but I think there's a lot of mental benefits by trying a variety of sports. I think it keeps you enjoying what you're doing. It's like, maybe you love flipping burgers, let's say. If you flip burgers for 1,000 days nonstop, you're not going to love flipping burgers anymore. So you've got to add a bit of variety into your life. And I think that's really important.
Mate,
and as you say, we saw many sports people, didn't we, that we all have our speciality of where we're good. So I'll be better at cardio, but I'm not lifting the weight I'm not lifting the way you could lift. Nowhere near that. And that's what I think was such a roller coaster, is you had to kind of acknowledge that everyone had their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. I like to think I've gotten myself to a point. And you know, when we were in the hotel, and I think they sent us a piece of paper and we had to write down a series of things. We had a number of little things to do over the whole period of time, but it asked for something like what you think you're best at, or what you think your talents are. And I sat with that one. I mean, I'm curious, what did you write on it, just out of curiosity?
When it came to physicality, I said that I expect to be better at more endurance-based things than I do at physical strength. I don't expect myself to be the strongest, but I said that I was expecting myself to be more versatile than most, just due to what I do. Again, I think the flexibility helped me massively.
Yeah.
More than
I think it was only
guess.
you, me, and probably Danica, obviously, were people that were kind of getting up in the morning and getting into that stretch routine. I think it was probably most surprising for people, for me, being this, what most people perceived as just a big lump. But I learned after my strongman days and a series of big injuries that range of movement, the longer I can maintain that for, even though ironically having come out from injury, I think the longer I can maintain that for, the better I'm going to be in terms of longevity and protecting myself from those areas of weakness.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you're filling out a form like that, it's quite hard sometimes to self-analyze. But I think I struggled with, there was a question like, tell me something interesting about yourself. Now I struggle more with that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what's interesting about myself. You know, I may look in on you and I can find interesting points about you, but it's hard to kind of self-analyze. And sometimes it's hard to find your weaknesses until you've tried it and done it. Like I found weaknesses throughout the course, which probably I was unaware of before, just because I'd never done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what was so great about a course like that. But I think with the injury things on the course, I think, some people may have got injured because they didn't prepare a certain way. But two, you were going to get injuries, and it was just kind of sod's law who was going to get it and who wasn't going to get it.
That said to me when I first saw Aaliyah, bless her, we all went through that tube, and she got a pretty significant laceration on her arm, and we all went through. She went through one of the first few, And like any of us could have got that. With the greatest respect, I don't imagine they went through and sieved through the whole bloody tube and went, what was this thing this person's just got caught on? So yeah, there was certain things like that. I was always worried about like slipping up on one of the rocks or something like that and rolling my ankle. There's an almost irony of the mundane environment we were in when, when my ligament decided to just pop. But nonetheless, I wanted to take you back to what training you did specifically for it. So what made you actually want to apply for the course? Because you clearly have a high demand, high level life where you perhaps wouldn't be easy to take a lot of time off.
I think my greatest inspiration was, well, there's two reasons mainly. One of the reasons was I know my dance career is going to end sooner or later.
Okay.
Whether that's due to injury or whether that's due to age, you're normally finished by 35. That's it. And
How
I
old are you
think
now?
I'm 29 now.
Okay.
So I've got a few years left if I'm lucky. But the point is that's been kind of my meaning for my whole life. My dance, that has been everything for me. And I think it's a challenge when I'm going to lose that. And I've got to be able to change to a different path. And I think that that's quite a scary prospect. So I kind of wanted to come away with a bit of confidence that I can be a bit versatile and do something else.
Hmm.
That's a big thing for me. And I think when I spoke to some of the staff, they were talking about their experiences of leaving the military, and you get the exact same experience.
Yeah, mate.
It's very daunting to remove away from everything you've kind of known. Again, as you say, we're disciplined. We're disciplined, and we're used to that discipline. It can be quite a challenge.
You become your job. For a lot of people,
Yeah.
their job is 80% of who they are. So when you're no longer a professional dancer, who the fuck are you?
That was a big thing. And I think the second thing is, many laugh about this. When I was younger, I was always asked, what do you want to be when you're older? And I said, I'm going to be a professional dancer. Now, if I can't do that, they was like, oh, what's your backup? I said, I'm going to join the Royal Marines. That was my two dreams in life. And I remember, most people would laugh, but when I told the staff that, they were like, you know what, that totally makes sense. And to them, it totally makes sense because just the mentality, the physicality, the discipline, there's a lot of similarities between the military and the dance world, even though we look like extreme different ends of the scope.
Yes, I know what you're saying. To Joe Public, you might seem like different ends of the spectrum, but like when I first started talking to you before you told me what you do, I had a couple of things in my mind. I had doctor, I had lawyer, I had an officer in something. I didn't know whether it was like Metropolitan Police or something like that because you're very articulate, you're very disciplined, you're very attentive, you're a great listener. You give people focus, and you're clearly the sort of person that can assimilate knowledge. And again, it kind of comes back to that discipline, professionalism that you bring to any environment that you're in. And I imagine, with the greatest respect, like not everybody in your sector has that. So they are very, very transferable skills. So whilst it's amazing and great to see you have that self-awareness that what you're doing now will come to an end, I think that when you give it the level of focus that you apply to the things in your life currently, you won't be too far to find something that you can translate these characteristics into and be very, very effective.
Yeah, well, I said that was kind of one of my main reasons of going into the course. And you know what? I have actually came away with it. I came away with the confidence that I can go down a different path. And now I'm actually quite excited to kind of get on and do it.
Yeah.
If it's kind of a weird experience.
Apply for the reserves or something like that and get in there.
Yeah, well, exactly what I was thinking. I mean, I study now alongside my dancing anyway, just to give me some sort of degree. I'm doing my master's in global development. And I was thinking the other day, how great would it be get a development job, go join the Royal Marines Reserves alongside.
Fuck
I
yeah.
mean, this definitely scratched that itch that I was kind of looking for.
Yeah, man.
That maybe if I hadn't gone to dance, or maybe if I had gone down the military path, that gave me that itch. But I think many people also, there's still a very selfish urge to just how far you can get in a course like that anyway, especially if people like us. If you're motivated,
100%.
you're excited by the fact to just get in and do it and see. Because none of us went there with the idea that we're going to leave after a day. We all went there with the idea, we want to see how far we can push this and see how far we can push ourselves. And there's something quite exciting about that. To some people, that looks really scary and they want nothing to do with it. But to people like us, that is exciting. I loved every day of the bloody course. I would do it again. I'd sign up tomorrow and start all again.
100%. It's on my list. As soon as this rehab is done, whether it's this or an eco challenge or something else, when I remember speaking to someone, they go, oh, well, you've ticked that box now, haven't you? And I kind of looked at them like, fuck you on about? there's no fucking box to be ticked. This is a pathway. This is okay. It's like a series of hurdles on a track. Okay, I stumbled over the last one, or I fell into it. I'm still going to go on to the next one. It's not something I'm going to fill up my cup and then leave. I said, you know, I do this sort of stuff, whether it's international search and rescue, whether it's courses, to London and the fire service, and doing different qualifications and instructing and fucking podcasting, whatever it might be. I've had like 4 businesses in the past as well. It's like, I like to learn and fail and do different things and advance and progress. And there's an addictive personality within that I always say to people, if you don't find a healthy way, a healthy outlet for that addictive, driven, passionate, whatever people might choose to describe it as, it can end up being very destructive to yourself. So it's not something you can just tick a box and walk away from. Like you say, you went really, really far in the course. You were tremendously successful with it, but doesn't mean it's over for you. Not like you have regrets perhaps, but there's still an appetite to continue to chase those.
Yeah, I think I came away even more motivated, which was great. I think it's quite interesting though. I'm very similar to you. If I'm not chasing something new and constantly evolving, I'm not happy. I will get down and depressed. If I'm not doing something, that's not a good place for me mentally. I always have to be evolving and learning. And I believe, run Earth once. I'm not happy to just sit and do the same thing. I want to grow every day until the day I die.
100%, mate. And there's always an opportunity to do that. So to take us back, let's go micro for a minute. You came into the course. Obviously, a lot of stuff people won't know. They only see kind of 6 episodes or whatever. So there's so much of everything they won't know. And this won't come out until after everything's been released. So we can go wherever we like with it. We all kind of, we didn't really meet up at the airport, but everybody kind of got to the airport. And then I was kind of like, everyone was kind of doing that, looking around, seeing who they thought. I think I spotted you quite early on for one of 2 reasons. I think I saw you holding a folder that jumped out to me, because as soon as I got given the folder, I took the paper out, put the paper in my pocket, and put the folder in my bag, because I was like, people are going to see me holding a folder and they're going to know what I'm doing if they're one of them. And there was one of them, bless him, because what people don't know is they also take reserves with them, don't they? They take, I think, 3 or 4 people that, and there was one guy who just fucking held the folder the entire way to Vietnam, waving it around like a goddamn flag. I was like, dude, come on, you're standing out like a sore thumb here. But no, I spotted you early on. What did you think running up to it, and then when a kind of like the button got pressed and you were getting picked up and on your way down?
I think I liked what I enjoyed about the process, but was probably the most stressful part is you don't know you're kind of going until the very last minute.
Yeah.
It's really last minute when they say you're going.
Must have been very hard for you as well in terms of committing to work.
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah, because, they told you this month is the month we're probably filming. But I can't then go and cancel work and stuff last minute. So I had to decide early on. I basically, straight away after we did our very first fitness test, cleared that whole month, because I can't do that thing work. I can't go last minute. That's for time off. I can't go last minute cancel performances wherever it is in the world. So I kind of committed to it straight away, because that was the only choice I had. Luckily, obviously, managed to get on the course. But when you turn up at the airport, I think, first of all, there's a bit of excitement about where you're going.
Yeah.
I had quite a good inkling that I knew we were going to the jungle as soon as they gave us our boots to break in.
I was going to say it's the boots. When we didn't have desert boots and stuff like that.
The boots were a giveaway.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, well, they've told us not to bring thick socks as well, so we're not going anywhere cold.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you what, out of all the environments, the jungle was probably the most fearful, just because you knew you were going to be in the hardest environment, I would say, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Of all the environments they go, the jungle is just the absolute beast.
Mm.
But yeah, I spotted a few people. But I was quite. It's a weird mix, isn't it? Because they're telling you not to communicate, but you kind of want to build some bonds, because you know that's going to benefit you when you go in.
Well, you sat on the plane in front of me, didn't you?
I did.
I tapped you on the shoulder. You were great. You were kind of like, sure, we're not supposed to be doing this. And I'm like, I'm just going to talk to you anyway.
It's funny, isn't it? It's like you've got to kind of balance it again. I understand they want people to like get organic relationships on the camera. Yeah. But for us lot, it wasn't about it being a TV program. We were in it for the experience.
Yeah, 100%. So take me up to when we all kind of got there. We all, well, people don't know, so we went through a quarantine, which I think a couple of people found quite difficult. I fucking loved it. Took my laptop, got loads of fucking work done, did loads of PT in the room. I'm pretty good at being by myself. I listened to a bunch of audiobooks. Is there any, what did you kind of do during that? Because it was like a 4 or 5 day period, wasn't it?
I was really productive. Yeah, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I didn't actually watch any TV really. I worked out quite a bit. Again,
Mm.
I focused more on, not normally that I do a lot of yoga, but I was focusing massively on the stretching thing because I just thought it'd become such a great asset. I enjoyed the little runs that we were allowed out to do.
Yeah,
I
beautiful
tried to get in
place.
as
My
much
God.
distance as I could. But
Yeah.
I was quite good with quarantine. I was just seeing that as such a bonus that we could acclimatize to the heat. And I
Massive.
understand people hated it. Some people like just went crazy in their rooms or didn't know what to do. And I was just thinking, this is great. What
I
an
loved it.
opportunity to get the heat in and just get your body a little bit used to it for when you
Yeah.
go on the course. Because, you know, if we'd turned up and the next day you're on the course, I reckon we would have lost half the course on the first day.
Lost them so fast, mate, because the humidity was, I think it was up around the 90% when we first got there, because it rained straight for like a couple of days, didn't it? Rough flooding all over the place, and the heat
Yeah.
didn't lay off. It was always stayed in the 30s at least.
Yeah, when we were actually on the course already, I remember one of the crew said, yeah, we were at like 33 degrees and it was like 95% humidity for the first few days.
Yeah,
That's insane. And if you hadn't had that acclimatization,
yeah,
your body just would have been, we would have been straight in shock.
yeah, 100%. Because you basically just sweat non-stop. You can't really get control of your breathing or anything like that. So take us up to, we arrived on the course. We all kind of got taken down to these strange kind of boats, and we just got dumped near the river to start with, and there's masses of sort of film crew everywhere, but nobody's talking to you, and they're just kind of pointing in the direction of the water, and we're like, "What, do you want us to fucking swim, or do you want us to do whatever?" And then all those ladies came coming down on their little boats, and that for me was like when the whole thing began. It was so picturesque, just going down that, meandering through this beautiful terrain. How did you find
Mm-hmm.
that first thing, and then sort of turning the corner on the DS and it began?
I think there's a great beauty about it. And I think that's what's funny. At the beginning, we all appreciated the beauty, as you say. We
Mm.
were going down that beautiful river and the mountains, how green everything was. Again, you do, yeah, there's loads of crew. And it's weird, isn't it? On the first day, you see all the crew and you're kind of conscious about it. A couple of days in, you forget they're there.
Yeah,
You're so in the course. And I think that's quite incredible. But when we came around the corner and you saw the staff in that temple at the top of the
yeah, that
mountain,
was
you're
great.
like, this is it. This is it. This
Fucking
is when
go
it began.
time.
Yeah.
That
And as soon as them little ladies said go, and we all just jumped off the boats to swim
was
to shore,
amazing. I can't wait
you
to see
knew
that bit of
we were
footage
in it.
there.
Yeah. And I think once we all legged it up to the steps and you've got the staff in front of you, your mind switches. That's when it's like, it's go time.
Yeah,
That was it. Once
yeah.
they started beating us up and down the steps, cut my hands straight away into shreds.
I know. I
And
was worried about
that
you.
was it.
Yeah.
I thought that might take me out. I thought, because, you
I
know,
was
you
worried
get
about you the
infected
first few
in the
days. I was like,
jungle,
if they
it
get
can knock you
infected,
out.
you're fucking touching everything. We're doing so many press ups and sit ups and all this sort of shit and pull ups. And like, I thought, shit, because you wrapping your hands good and proper. Yeah,
Yeah.
but so break us down with that, because people, I don't know how much of that they'll show. There was a massive temple with, well, I remember 214 steps exactly. And we
You
were,
remember that now.
we were going up and down everything. And I think most people expected us to get like strip off and get changed. But we ended, how many people do you think regretted what they were wearing? Because there was some fancy outfits knocking about.
I think massively. One of the staff likes to point out if people had nice, colourful outfits on, but I think people, I actually probably was expecting us to turn up at camp, strip off, get in gear, kind of get like, this is where you're going to be, la, 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 la. And I think people were not expecting to go into a beasting straight away.
No.
And yeah, my hands on the gravel or the whatever, all the rubbish on the steps. I remember Foxy was like, okay, bird crawls. And I just literally pushed my hand down first time and it just cut straight away. And I thought, oh no, what a great start. And like you said, you figured out very quickly, nothing heals in the jungle.
Fuck yeah. No. Everything's moist.
Nothing heals whatsoever.
Non-stop.
You just, that's it. You got to deal with it now for the rest of the course. But you saw a few faces. I remember poor Charlotte was a bit hyperventilating already
Oh
on the
no,
first
bless her,
day.
yeah.
And you could see people's were questioning.
Hmm.
I thought we'd lose some in that. Actually, I'm surprised we didn't.
I thought we
In
would,
that
yeah.
shot drop, I thought we were going to lose some 100%. I think they were very lucky to find a group of people that were really not giving up,
Mm.
because
We
you
covered the
looked
whole
around, you
physical
saw some
spectrum.
faces.
Yeah, we did. We were carrying each other. We obviously went up and down the mountain bit. We clawed through all the swamps. I think a lot of people, I certainly got a load of leeches on me. We were going through all the mud. We were bear crawling. We were carrying each other. It was a big spectrum. That was a good start. I love that. It was a good insertion. That
Yeah.
was.
And you can see quite early on who's enjoying to be there and who wants to kind of push on and get on it. And you could see in the faces a few who were kind of regretting it and already thinking, maybe it's not for me. Like how quick, within the first 30 minutes, you can already make a distinction with some people. And as you say, when what was it next? They put us on the bus in the hoods. People are in a hood for the first time, transporting you off to camp. And I think, people question. I think people, when they're left alone with the thoughts, that's probably when people are questioning the most.
So then we kind of got into it. We were allowed to get changed. We were allowed to bed into the accommodation. We weren't given massive amounts of time. And then it kind of started for some people around that whole not knowing. Do you know what I mean? The whole uncertain, are we going, are we not going? What's happening next? Some people really struggle with that.
I think that can be one of the greatest challenges of selection, actually. It's, when you're on task, you've got a clear goal. That's what you're doing. You know what you're trying to succeed. And I think the thing is, you're coming back, they loved us to have our gear ready to go again. And you come back, you've got your gear ready. It's at the end of your bed, and the little camp bed. And you don't know, you've got 5 minutes till you're going again, or you've got 2 hours. So practically, it was also an issue, as you remember, you might want to take off your boots, try your feet, get rid of some of this jungle rot, but you just don't know if you have time. And I think that's the constant mental game is, I've got to be ready to go. You're still in your wet gear, your brain's spinning, and you're like, one, you're uncomfortable. As they say, you've got to learn to, be comfortable in the uncomfortable. Two, you've just got to accept that you don't know when you're going again. And that stops you relaxing. And I think that's why it becomes such a mental game. You can never relax, can you? No. You're constantly on edge to be shouted. And three, just practically, you've always got to be ready to go. And when you go, what are you going to be doing? And if you let that play on your mind, I can see it eats away at you. I think there was a few people at the beginning who that was their biggest stress point.
Amelia, bless her. It's something we spoke about at length with Amelia, when I had her on the podcast, is that sense of unknowing was real. It just constant shots of adrenaline for her. Anytime there was a noise in the room or anytime there was a noise outside, and she was just constantly having that adrenaline dump. And that was the biggest thing for her. I think that's what really drained her energy really early on.
Yeah, it's tiring. It's extremely tiring. If you're reacting to every little noise, you're just never going to have the energy to get through the course. And I think also there was a very early on, you had I think it was Alia who was getting a few injuries already.
Yeah.
And I think you could see she was already focusing on every little injury.
Yeah.
And again, that's tiring. That's going to wear you down. And once you kind of gave yourself the mindset that, I need to go see the doctor for this, I need to go see the doctor for that, you've already signed your kind
the
of
clock's already started, hasn't it? You're counting down to the day that you're going to leave.
Yeah, you already know you're going. I think it was the same later on when Ross did in his rib. He already said to me, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to make it to the end now. It's just kind of how long can I hold on?" And really? I think
it was the same for Scott as well. When he stopped bothering taking his, not bothering, it's harsh, but when he stopped bothering taking his boots off, even though he had a big issue there, and he just kind of signed himself off to the fact that I don't know really. I mean, I've spoken to Scott about it, but he was always in the mindset of he didn't feel like he had enough time and it was too painful to take him off, but that was a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, he knew that was his issue, and I think people were quite quick to accept, and I understand why they were. They were like, this is kind of it for me. That was it. People are all on their own individual journeys, and I think people forget that. As you say, you probably see 20% of it on the TV. You're missing so much of the experience. Yeah. You can't even express the pressure that everyone is under constantly to be ready to go again, and just losing that control over their own life and their own routines. And that's something they'll never come across on the show.
Yeah.
But it's probably 50% of the game is that mentality.
Yeah, a big portrayal of it is a lot of the physical aspects. And while we did lose a bunch of people, I mean, I think the first big drop off was we had a really late night beasting out in the yard on one occasion, and I think we lost like 3 people during that, didn't we?
We did. We nearly lost more. In fact, they stopped a few from actually.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? Who did they start? I forget now, because I had a conversation.
Maybe Zach got up to try.
Yeah, Zach handed his thing in and had it given back to him, and so did I can't remember who the other individual was, but yeah, you're right. I think they nearly lost a hell of a lot. I enjoyed that. Me and you though, because we were talking for a little bit afterwards, because you and I kind of went out bullet a gate, and we weren't trying to be the best, but we were trying to be the best version of ourselves. So by byproduct, we started lapping round quite a few things. But then you were saying to me, you're like, no one's paying attention. With the greatest of respect, they're not paying attention to how many times you go round, because you get into like the next station, and then they're including you with somebody that's 2 laps behind and saying, right now, all of you bear crawl, and we're like, we're fucking 2 laps ahead.
It's weird, and I think that was kind of a mental game for me and you, and I think that's where we kind of succeeded, is we carried on no matter what. We didn't give up. That was the main thing, obviously, with any beasting. But they do see it. They knew who had lapped.
Okay. Yeah.
I have no doubt now that they knew who had lapped, and it was an added pressure for me and you. If you're doing well, I think they like to try and push you a little bit more mentally than the others. And you're right. It wasn't we were competing with everyone else. We knew that we were there to give 100% of what we could. And even when you're getting beasted,
I think that was the first moment in my mind where, and maybe I was a little bit disappointed in myself, to be fair, because it was the first moment in my mind where I was looking at people kind of over my shoulder and going like, you're not keeping up. The right thing to do for the collective group. And that's probably a little bit harsh, because maybe I should have been more, I mean, I was supportive like with Stephen on the run and Amelia and all that sort of stuff. But when you yourself, you must know, not you obviously, but they must have known, they were like, if this was a straight line thing, like it's right, do burpees for 50 yards, do press ups, do things, they'd have been a fucking long way behind. And that's where I wonder if they were looking for a bit more personal accountability for those individuals to go, well, again, I'm holding the group back, but I'm not holding the group back because we're going around in fucking circles.
Well, I think that's exactly the test for beastings. Let's say, so we lost 3 on that night.
Yeah.
That's how many actually went. And they'll have had the mindset of, right, we're going to beast them until 3 go. And you're hoping, and I understand why you do hope that, because as the team, once 3 people have go, the beasting's over. But we're going to keep going. We can go for 2 hours. But I think the fact is, if you're that far behind and you know that eventually you're going to quit anyway, like they say, it's more honorable to do the thing and just quit there and then and save everyone else the beast in it, instead of dragging it out for everyone, even though you've already said in your mind, you're already like, I'm going to go home anyway. So I think, there's a balance. We were all supportive. We were really supportive of each other, and that was great. But there was still the personal accountability that was important. And the staff made that clear to us, that if you are not doing it, or you feel that you're not going to do it, maybe hand in your band, because you will save everyone, and you'll save yourself a lot of misery that you don't even need to go through.
I think
there's a fine balance, isn't there?
The one place where that kind of, because I completely agree with you, but the one place where there's a differentiating factor with that was when we did some of the swim stuff. So, for example, like Rosie had to learn to swim when she was coming on the course. She couldn't swim, bless her. And then like Steve, Jesus Christ, I dropped back on one of the swims to help Steve. And then I even had to get, I think it was Levi came back as well, because we had like 3 Bergens in us, and he could barely swim. I don't think he goes. I think you hung back and helped somebody.
I was doing Rosie. I was pushing Rosie the whole way.
Yeah, that was like. And again, in those circumstances, would it have been the right thing for those individuals to say, guys, I can't swim. I appreciate everyone's helping me out here. Or is that a moment where you feel like that was a test to see who would support the rest of the team? Because swimming's no joke.
I think that moment was a test. I think that was to see our teamwork, that we stayed back. I think the more it differs from beastings is we're all physically in pain. And basically at that moment, you're putting your team in pain. When we were swimming, it was a bit of a stumble. We had to all slow down. It made us all late or whatever. But we shown the teamwork. So that's it. It's a constant game, and you've got to make them decisions in the moment, haven't you? Is this a moment where I need to do good for myself? Is this a moment where I need to do good for my team? And I think they're constantly watching to see what decisions you make in that moment. And your decision to go back and help, in my opinion, was precisely what they wanted in that moment.
Yeah.
They wanted us to show that we're willing to help.
When you bring water into the factor, even though there would have, there's loads of people there to save anybody that would have come into difficulty, there's something about when water comes in, like viscerally, even though it won't happen, kind of part of you feels like, this person's going to drown. This person's actually going to fucking drown if somebody doesn't help them out. So I think that kind of came out within me, where I was like, it's not really an option of like, do I show teamwork? It was more like, This person can't fucking swim.
It's a natural instinct to help people.
Yeah.
And that's different, isn't it? Because, like you say, it's different in the water. When we were getting beasted, everyone can physically work out.
Everyone can run
Everyone
or
that's fit,
walk
they
or
can all do
whatever. It's
it.
just hard.
But when
Yeah.
we're in the water, that some people, that is either their biggest fear or they just can't do it.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I think it is right to rally round and push them on as much. Because I remember poor Rosie, she was laughing with me after. He said, he told her to get on a berg and kick her legs. She started kicking, she started going backwards.
I
So
know.
in that point, we had to go and help her because otherwise the whole team's going to be waiting for 2 hours anyway. So yeah, you're right. In that moment, you make the decision what you feel's right.
Yeah.
You're not constantly thinking about what a staff thinking, what are they doing. I do that now because now we're outside of it. You can kind of debrief with yourself and be like, oh, maybe in the moment that's what they were looking at. But in the moment, you weren't thinking, oh, what's staff thinking? You were thinking, there's someone swimming backwards here. Let's go help them out. Yeah. I mean, that's just what you do, isn't it? It's like kind of natural, especially with our sort of mindsets. It's very natural to want to help.
Your sort of level of control and awareness and your ability to kind of change gears and really focus started coming through for me when we did that first rope working at height, walking across the beams. Were you the first one to pass that? Because I think only 2 or 3 people managed to do that.
Yeah, I was quite nervous about that as well because I'd watched everyone fall before me. That's where it knocks you, doesn't it? It knocks you mentally.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because that was probably, weirdly, my most scary task, which was weird because I'm not afraid of heights. I mean, I have a healthy respect of heights. I'm not fearless when it comes to. And I thought, I can balance 2 poles, that my sort of thing. But I think the pressure, and that was probably mentally, just I watched everyone else fall off it right before I got, and there was so much pressure, and it was like, oh yeah, you should be able to do this, and that knocked me a little bit. But it was such a learning lesson for me because by the end of the process, we were doing some weird tasks, and I was just going into it with, there's no point being fearful, just get on with it and just do it. And I learned to totally zone in. So even though I passed that, and it looked like, I did well, for me, it was a massive lesson. And that was part of my evolution throughout the course. And if you gave me them poles at the end of the week, I would have probably sprinted across them without even worrying about it. Yeah. Because that's how much they managed to remove the fear. But I think they know what they're doing. They know how to push your buttons and make you feel the pressure and feel the fear. That's what they're there for, isn't it?
So to give me a whistle-stop tour through some of the others. So we had that. We had the waterfall. God, that was beautiful.
Oh, incredible. That was so incredible. I was so excited about that. Yeah. We had that one. That was quite a fun one. I mean, when it came to rope work, we did an abseil into a cave from the top of the mountain. That was beautiful. Climbing up the mountain, that was quite beautiful. So we did quite a lot of that sort of stuff. And as I say, though, as you went on, it just became less fear and just more enjoyment for me, especially. I think that's what the staff were laughing about. I was just loving it. I was enjoying every moment. I think the mental stuff was probably more challenging for a lot of people. I mean, my favorite task on the whole course was we had to go into a marketplace in the city. They drove us into the city. Okay. And it gave us a pistol. And Chris, one of the staff, he showed me a picture of a target, and he was like, okay, this is a target, it's an armed terrorist in this marketplace. And a couple of days before, they gave us the rules of engagement to memorize. So you're going through this live marketplace. This is an actual market in Vietnam with hundreds of people shopping. Oh. Market's fully functional. And there's decoys. I found my target. I came around the corner. And the guy goes to reach for his back pocket. And he pulls out a phone as though he's going to shoot me with a phone. And in that moment, I lifted up a t-shirt, hand on weapon, saw the phone, put it down. I'd made the right decision.
Oh, great move.
But that was my greatest moment. And the reason it was my greatest moment, in my life, I've never felt so wired. Yeah. My senses were so heightened. It was like everything slowed down. I've never had this experience. I'm not sure I could ever experience it again. But I just felt so on point and so in the zone. And I wish I could bottle that, because that is powerful. If you can get in the zone so much, it's extremely powerful stuff. And but still, I'd made the right decision. But then for a good 5 minutes, Chris was screaming in my face, asking me why I didn't shoot the armed terrorist. Even though he had a phone, I'd done the right decision. And I was nearly shouting back at him the rules of engagement at this point, because I was like, I knew I'd made the right decision, but he's trying to twist your brain to go, oh no, maybe I was wrong. And then after 5 minutes, he just hits me in the chest and goes, "Yeah, you made the right decision. Good conviction." And you're there, just your brain is just mush because they've tried to twist it and twist it and twist it, and you don't know what to do. But that was probably one of my favorite tasks, and it wasn't because it was anything physical.
Yeah.
It was the first time that I'd got fully into that zone that they were talking about, being wired, being focused, seeing everything, memorizing stuff. And man, I wish I could bottle that and drink it because
Yeah.
that was so powerful. But you understand why then people in the field, why they come away with so much trauma. Because if you stay wired all that time, it would drain you massively.
Yeah, well, again, it's that adrenal fatigue, because that hyper awareness comes at a cost to other energy systems in the body, and you can't bounce off the ceiling constantly like that. You just get that chronic sort of burnout aspect to it, don't you? So, talk to me about the different dynamics in the team as things got into the later stages of the courses. What do you think the differentiating factors were between those? Because there was a few more individuals who either had big or small injuries or factors that limited them from continuing on, really.
Well, I think what was interesting, and this is where it came down to me, my worst task, they'd put me as team leader, and we were basically doing a sickener. And I had Ross, who'd obviously already broken his rib at this point, and it gave us a very heavy ammo box, about 6 jerry cans, 2 tires, and we had to transport it. So obviously I gave the girls the jerry cans, the tires, and me and Ross were on the ammo box, walking 10 paces, swapping sides, walking another 10 paces. That's all you could do. And we were well in the lead until one moment, Ross's rib, something must have popped or done something because suddenly he couldn't carry it anymore. So I was team leader. And in this moment, I'm doing my best staff impression, because that's my sort of motivation. I'm getting everyone, trying to get everyone moving. I try to get the girls back to come help. Because they'd already reached the point. So I'm like, come back, come and give us a hand. So they're trying to carry this ammo box. And from that moment on, it all sort of fell apart. One, Ross was already injured. He couldn't do much more at this point. Becky, one of the girls, was also slightly injured. And this is when we lost Becky. So we reached the rendezvous point. We were already massively behind the other team. And we had to sprint to the other DS, like they always say, sprint to the next DS. So we all sprinted. Becky was already hobbling. Me and Ross were trying to carry her. She was quite good there, though. She realized she could not go on and she gave her band in. But now I'd gone from a team of 5 to a team of 4. We got given a rib. We had to swim a rib across a lake, not with paddles, just with actually swimming it. And then once we got out of the lake, he'd like, get your Bergens on. I'm shouting at my team, right, everyone get your Bergens on. And this was where I pulled in my first conflict in the whole dynamic of the team was Danica was suddenly like, oh, can you stop shouting? For her, she wasn't embracing my way of leading. And I understood that. And I said to her, okay, I'm sorry if this is not working for you. I'll tone it down for you. But from that moment on, she'd already decided that she wasn't going to listen to my leadership anymore. After I spoke to the staff about it, they were basically like, next time, just tell her to shut the F up and get on with it. They said in that environment, you using people the right need to leadership.
Learn, yeah. Unless somebody in charge,
not everyone does danger, that, and
there's a power in just listening to what you've been being told to do.
Yeah, and I think there was a bit of a challenge then because we got the boat onto the road. My hands were totally messed up. I couldn't even grip the boat anymore. So I was like, let's get on our shoulders, which I already knew was a better tactic anyway. And straight away, Danica was like, no, I can't do that. We can't do that. It's a bad idea. And you could see the team then was breaking down. Ross was willing to listen. Rosie was willing to listen. And then when we did eventually get on our shoulders, we were doubling our pace. It was amazing. But every 2 minutes, she was like, oh, no, we can't do it. We need to put it down and carry it the other way. I tried to explain that my hands literally weren't gripping anymore because I had to carry the ammo box. When you get that grip fatigue, it wasn't even closing at this point. And so, we lost that task. We had to carry then the boat back to camp. We got punished for it. And then I got beasted, obviously, for my leadership off the staff for quite a while. But it was quite funny because then once all the cameras are off, they're like, oh, by the way, it wasn't actually your fault. We gave you a bad team. It was just bad luck. But you're so messed up. And I was questioning myself for ages. And I was like, am I really a terrible leader? Was it the wrong style? And that was probably my lowest moment on the course. And it was only Ross came up to me and he was like, no, actually, mate, you led it the right way. It's just that military style of leading, which I kind of enjoy, it wasn't for her. It wasn't for Danica. And I understand that. But in that environment, you can't do anything else. I tried to tone it down for her, but you could see she'd already gave up on listening, and she wanted to try and control it her way. And I think that was probably something for me. Now I want to go away and learn. Okay, what in that situation? What can I do to bring it back in the fold? I said that to the staff. This is something I don't do a lot of leadership in my job. So this is something now I know that's my weak point. Maybe.
Yeah.
What can I go and learn to do? So that's something I look to do in the future. But that was probably the first time the team dynamics kind of broke down.
Yeah.
As you say, later on in the course, once people are getting injured, they're probably better to just give it up, because, as I say, we started off with a 5-man team, and by the end of it, we had 4. Obviously, probably 3 because Ross wasn't carrying at this point. So, as much as it's great for the team, you're probably better going home, because you just become more. You're not an asset anymore. You're just a liability, and that sounds harsh because all these people were great. They worked hard.
No, absolutely.
Becky, before she quit, she smashed carrying the ammo box with me. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Ross gave everything he got. So it wasn't that mentally they were giving up. It was just the bodies that gave out, not the brain that gave out.
Yeah. That's what I always thought it would be, in terms of how can you damage limitation or damage mitigation? Sorry, your body, everybody's body is going to progressively become damaged. Can you avoid any of the big blowouts? Can you not slip off the top of the rock? Can you not do something like I did or whatever? Or can you not get a big laceration or something gets fallen on you or something like that? And then it's a progressive stage of your body. You can't be sustained in this pace. It's a bit like going past into death zone of Everest or something like that, not to try and over glorify what we did, but your body's not going to sustain inevitably in that environment. It's going to rot, it's going to break down, it's going to become progressively malnourished. So that was very much, there's an element of luck in it, but also how do people manage it when they start to deteriorate into that aspect of it? Because you can make it far worse for yourself when your own self-disciplines start to fall away. You don't look after yourself, don't look after your feet, you don't think about how you're picking things up or how you're maneuvering yourself.
Yeah, I think that's what was quite interesting about the course. I think we all learn a lot about ourselves, and learning to kind of accept our weaknesses and our body's limitations. I think that was a challenge, because everyone's came on the course to get to the end no matter what, and that you're going to try and push, and some of us, even with the mindset with certain injuries, you just like getting on with it. But there's a time when you have to acknowledge that this might be the end of your journey, whether that's through your own choice or just through bad luck. It's going to happen to someone. There's only a few people who are going to make it to the end, and that was just the way it was going to be.
So take me to that final 24 hours for yourself, and sort of how it finished and how you thought it was going to finish.
I was quite optimistic because, as I say, the staff were, they're still obviously beating me 24/7, but they were quite positive with how I was finishing each task. Everything was going quite well. I think the last day was interesting because I already thought it was the last day. The day before it was the last day, and I was obviously way off with my timing. That's what happens when you're tired. You're tired. I thought they were taking us out on transport to go and start our little escape and evade sort of thing. But instead, they just drove us up to this massive sea and thrown us out of a rib, and we had to climb a little ladder into a helicopter. That was an amazing task. But you're already just so drained at this point. But the fear is gone, which is quite interesting. And then the next day, they woke us up nice and early, and they're like, right, you've got to escape and evade, basically. But you weren't really. You were just, they gave us like an RV point to go collect cash, collect some hammocks or whatever. We'd set them up in the jungle. And we were in the jungle. The sun had gone down. We were in the hammocks. A few of us are on watch. We must have been asleep, I'd say, I was probably asleep about 10 minutes before we got ambushed. And they came out of every nook and crevice you can imagine in the jungle. But as you know yourself, you can't see more than 5 meters once you're in the dense jungle.
Yeah.
So gas, everything, dogs were going off. There was, flashbangs going off. Dragged us down on the ground. We all got ripped around, thrown around a little bit. We all got walked down the mountain, holding on to each other's bergens, head down. Obviously got hooded once we were down, got paraded around some distance, and then they had let the dogs go on us for a while, barking at us, walking next to you, barking. I think they even let the dogs jump up on you at one point. That was quite a little bit nerve-wracking with these dogs. And then basically from that point on, you put in your jumpsuit. Well, you're waiting until you get interviewed. You're first interviewed, then you put in your jumpsuit, your first interrogation. And then I was in there for about 14 hours. I think it was 15 hours total. The interrogation went on. And I probably spent most of them hours, I'd say at least 30 of them in a stress position, hood on, and the headphones on.
Mm.
And what was quite interesting was people's experiences. So I got interviewed 3 times, and I was quite confident the first one, tried to just play the character, like staff had told me. They gave us a little briefing on what you should do if you ever were captured. And then the next time she changed her tone and she was a bit more aggressive. So I went a bit quieter, pretended to be a bit more weak, a bit more afraid. And then from that moment on, that was the character I kept. I was going to say I'm a little bit weak. You don't want to be too weak, but you don't want to be arrogant with them. And I was slowly giving up the information that we'd all agreed that we're going to give up. So like names of the group, because it was obvious that you'd know each other's names. And I was just in stress positions, and you're just listening to the sound, which is horrendous, and it changes every few minutes. You can't get used to the sound. But it's interesting because people like Josh, he said he didn't have the headphones on. He only had them on for about 30 minutes.
Wow.
Now, it's interesting how we got different experiences. I don't know if that's because they thought I was in control, so they were trying to break me a little bit more than the others.
Mm.
And so basically you have no idea what time it is. You're just standing there shaking in each stress position. You can't get comfortable, obviously. My favorite moment was everyone else got told that you're allowed to put your hand up and ask to use the toilet, and they'd take you out in your hood and give you the toilet or whatever. No one told me that, so I was like, I needed to loo, so I just peed myself, stood there in a stress position.
Oh, 100%.
You've got to do what you got to do.
I pissed myself when we were doing one of the runs.
My headphone, like, oh, by the way, you can go to the toilet. You just have to ask. I was like, oh, great. So I'm excited to see that on TV because I go in the interview and she's like, oh, so you peed yourself, have you? I was like, yes, I have.
Yeah.
Basically, I had no idea.
No one gives a fuck.
I don't think in the real selection they're going to let you use the loo anyway.
Yeah.
So that made me laugh a little bit. But that was the one thing on the course I wanted to experience. So I'm very happy I got to do that. The reason I got pulled, so he pulled me when there was about, I think he said there was 45 minutes or an hour left of interrogation when he pulled me.
No way.
And because obviously it's the interrogators that pull you, not the staff normally.
Yeah.
That was what the staff said. And the reason they pulled me was he said that I was too one-dimensional. Needed to be a bit more reactive, a bit chameleon. I think, not to blow my own horn, but I was so in control of keeping that character, releasing the information really slowly. I think if it was a longer series or a more realistic selection where, you might get 24, 48 hours.
Yeah.
I took the idea that this was going to go on for days and I need to slowly release the information without compromising anything. And I think they wanted me to be a bit more, basically more reactive. I think they wanted me a bit more, less of control and a bit more information out maybe. But that being said, for me, it was the perfect ending. And the reason I say that is I had a great ride the whole way through.
Yeah.
And I learned more by being pulled out in that last minute than if I'd gone through and won it. And the stuff the staff spoke to me after, once it was all over, the things they said to you, I felt like, I think what you respect these people so much, the staff, even though the beast and you're doing everything. And when they came out and they told me what they'd really thought about my progress on the course and that I'd earned a little bit of their respect, that was a win for me.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing and I think this is something that I probably failed in the interrogation, was I'm so controlled. And as you say, sometimes you can be a bit like a machine and a bit cold. And I think maybe I need to be a little bit more open with some of my emotions.
Okay.
So for me, I wouldn't rewrite the ending at all, because the people who went through, they'd been on such a roller coaster, they'd had some terrible trauma in life. You could see that opened up, that changed throughout the course, and they needed that win at the end. Yeah. They needed that handshake and then you pass. And for them, that was what their journey should have ended. I think my journey ended precisely when it should. And I was surprised, because I would have, if you'd asked me before I went in, were you going to be disappointed if you don't get that handshake at the end? I would have said, hell yeah, I'm going to be really disappointed. But just the way the staff spoke to me at the end, and I remember Chris said, he said, don't be disappointed. We've got very similar mindsets. And he said, you're going to take more away from this when we've ended it like this than if you'd actually gone on. And he was so right. He was so bang on right. And I've came away, and as I've decompressed, I wouldn't change it for the world. It was the perfect ending for me.
Oh mate, I'm so glad you have the self-awareness to appreciate it in the way that you have. So what do you look like? What does things look like for you now? You know, you said about coming through it, you've had some reflections on your leadership styles, you've had some confidence from your ability to cross over and do other things. You're much more of a chameleon physically and psychologically, and your ability to take these characteristics and disciplines you've learned from what you do professionally and potentially apply that to things in the future. What do you think is one of the biggest takeaways you'll take from it, and how do you think the future looks like for Dan? Obviously, we're not going to say you're going to leave the company, we're not going to say anything crazy like that, but what does the future look like for you now?
I think, as I say, I have this confidence that I'm ready to make the change now from dance.
Wow.
And I think that's massive for me. And it's not something that I thought I'd come away with. I knew that that was one of my goals, to gain a little bit of the confidence.
Hmm.
But I'm actually quite motivated to make the change now, which is quite a massive deal for me. I think one of the biggest takeaways is I've learned that maybe I am a little bit cold. I can be a bit more open with my emotion. Maybe just be a bit more me. I think with the discipline, you can lose your personality sometimes a little bit underneath it all. And I've learned, like the staff say, there's some benefit of letting your personality come out sometimes. So
Humanizes you
emotionally,
sometimes, makes you
I'm going
more
to try and
approachable
do
to
that.
certain people. Yeah.
Yeah. Physically, I need to increase my grip strength.
Okay.
That's something I'm definitely going to do. I want to take away, definitely work on some leadership skills, learn that, because that's going to be great for my future if I can learn some leadership skills. But yeah, the biggest thing is I think I'm ready to take the next step and find a new path, but I want it to be bloody challenging. So
Yeah.
as I say, I think maybe I should go and scratch that Royal Marines itch, at least maybe go
Fuck
down the reserves
yes.
route. I think, because you know what, dance career is over, but you can go a bit longer in that, and I think, why not go put a few years
100%
of
you can,
service
mate.
in, do some other
100%.
duty, and I think that would be great. And I didn't expect I didn't expect going into course to become in a way speaking like this. So I
Yeah.
think that is just shows you how much the course can change you if you let that evolution happen. You've got to be open to it. That's the main thing.
Mate,
You've got
that's
to
that's
accept it.
that's huge. And I think there's so much to be said for again having that awareness that leaving the party when you want to leave the party. You know, there's nothing worse than hanging around a little bit longer when maybe the party's over for you, or even though you could still hang around and keep dancing if you excuse the sort of analogy and the crossover there, but knowing that I've had a fucking amazing time doing what I'm doing right now. And you know what? I could, I add value to what I'm doing. People enjoy what I'm doing. I'm rewarded for it in emotionally and financially for it. But you know what? Chapters of life. You know what I mean? It's not the death of one thing and the start of another. It's an evolution, and you've clearly demonstrated that, like you say, mentally and physically, you've got all of the emotional and physical fortitude to be able to do things like that. But it's opened up those aspects of leadership where you're no longer an individual contributor like you have perhaps potentially been in the past, and gives you now, if you choose to, if you're open to it, which it sounds again like you are, the ability to explore those aspects. Because I think if you can, as you've done so well today, articulate yourselves and embody people with those sorts of life lessons and values that you've taken away, if you can effectively communicate those and help other people, that's the next big chapter for you, because this is something that you've got so much to offer so many people. If you just take those few pivots, it'll be a hell of an evolution. You know, the hybrid, Dan military dance crossfitter, everything that's going to come out the other end of this
It's a weird mix.
combination. It's dangerous, brother. It's fucking unique. And I think you'd be an absolute asset to whatever field and sector you apply yourself in the future. And I will be front row fucking cheering you on, brother. I really, really feel very privileged the value of association I've picked up with not everybody, but certainly with a few specific individuals that, I'd love to stay connected with, even if it's just once every 6 months, to encourage each other and hold each other accountable to that next path.
Yeah, I think that's massive. I think the few people that you come away with knowing is such a big part of the course. You're right. It's not going to be everyone, but there's one or
No,
two
and
people
that's
that you're
okay.
like, I want to keep in touch. I want to see where we go. Because really, what are you? You're a result of the people you surround yourself with as well. Sometimes.
100%, mate. And you know that far better than anybody. You've literally moved geographically to place yourself in environments which are going to allow those things to bleed over, to allow those disciplines and characteristics of other people to rub off on you. And that's manifested itself into what you are today.
Yeah. It's exciting. Future's exciting if we let it be.
Well, look, man, thank you so much for taking what's probably been a bloody hour and a half now, out of your day. I know you're a super busy guy, and I'm really, really appreciative of it. Well, what people won't know is we're still in October, at time of recording. This probably won't come out until whatever it is, January, February, until everybody's seen the fireworks and everything like that. So I hope we don't have to wait until then. I'll hopefully be mobile in maybe a month or two. I'll be able to drive and things like that. I think the group are trying to put a few plans together to maybe get. I have
no doubt you'll be back quick as possible. Yeah,
I have no doubt. I'm leveraging every kind of physio. I'm doing mental box training. I'm doing visualization. I'm doing everything that's got either a tangible statistic and study behind it, or even if it's just fucking magic crystals. I'm leveraging every kind of thing.
Everything's worth a shot.
It's going well, mate. It's going well. So look, I look forward to touching base in the future, my friend. Send my love to everybody in your part of the world, and I look forward to touching base soon.
Nice to speak to you.
Bye, my friend. I'll speak to you soon.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Firefighters Podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.